Hi everyone, welcome back to this video. Thanks for taking the time to join me this morning. I want to talk to you about my 2021 life intentions or goal setting. If you're into making some plans for this upcoming year, I'd love to get in this conversation with you. Feel free to leave comments and your thoughts down below. Of course, we can't do a talk video without a drink and maybe some snacks, so go make yourself something that you enjoy, and I'll meet you over there on the couch. Still hot. I thought we would start by kind of acknowledging the stresses that I'm sure has come upon all of you in the year of 2020. I don't really believe in dwelling on the bad things, but I am someone who is by nature or by nurture an all or nothing kind of gal. So when I had made my 2020 life intentions video, I will also link that down below for you. I had these great ideas about discovering myself and it being the year of like really understanding me. In a way, it has been, but in another way, I kind of threw all of that out the window because I went into survival mode, as I'm sure many of you have as well. Even though as an introvert I am perfectly content being a hermit and not having as many, I suppose, social obligations. However, it was still a really draining year because of the just everything out in the world. You know, you can't have that peace of mind, and even with work as well, work really needed me to be there for the people that I work with. So that had been very confusing in a way, and one of you guys put it so perfectly. You mentioned that we are all in some kind of mourning over 2020 for either the people that we've lost, the lives that we've lost, the plans that we've lost, to have canceled, postponed, or whatever ended up happening. I'm sure it's been a similar story for many of you. However, that does not mean though that I'm not going to try again for 2021. And I think that kind of all or nothing mindset in a way does lead me to go, okay, well, you know, I quit all of that in 2020, but I'm going to go into it again full force, which leads us to my 2021 life intentions. Now, I like to call these intentions versus resolutions or goals. It really doesn't matter what you say, but for me, intentions softens the idea a little. It gives me some flexibility to change my mind. Not to say you can't change your goals and redirect yourself throughout the year, but here are the 5 things that I've decided is going to be beneficial and aid in my growth to focus on. One of which is creating routines that are realistic and also puts my own well-being and values myself. I'm not sure about you, but I grew up with the habits that you do your work first and then you play. Great habits in the grand scheme of things, especially as a child. But when those have led me into adulthood, I often find myself burning out before I get to any of the actions that promotes restoration and self-care. Here's an example. I will have a list of things to do around the house. After I get home from work, work is a completely other story. When you get home, you're already kind of drained and tired, especially for me, especially mentally and psychologically. And then I go, okay, I need to check off all of these things, like everything, before I can allow myself to do something that's really just for me to unwind or to relax. And normally by the time I check off everything, I am way too tired to even think about what's left for me or to do the things that that serve me and that renews me. Now, cooking, you can swing it both ways. It's kind of a necessity that I have to eat, but it is kind of for yourself. I will say I spent a lot of time on cooking, and I will touch on that in my second intention. But back to routines. I think what I need to really do is build the self-care components into my actual to-do list and not just leave it for the very bottom. It's like if I do all these things and then I have time, then I will take care of myself. It usually doesn't end up that way, and maybe that's the case for you as well. Maybe that's something to move up on your to-do list. I also find another thing that happens is because I am so tired and I haven't filled my own bucket first, I don't really want to do any of the responsible house things on my checklist, so I stall. And how do I stall? I veg out in front of a screen, and just to take my mind off of either pushing myself through to do the house things or indulging in those self-care tasks, and I kind of get stuck in limbo and just stall the inevitable, and that is kind of a waste of time because I'm doing neither this nor that. And I love to hear if this is something that you would like to focus on as well. And I think this is something that we don't think about actively, but I certainly realize more so than ever over the last 12 months. Now, the second intention pertaining to food is to either get a bit better at meal prepping or to just have a few different variety of quick and easy meals. Like if I think quick and easy meal, I think the 30-minute meal. Is that Rachel Ray? That's gotta be somebody I used to watch as a child on TV, and it's like 30-minute meals. It's so hard for me to get my meals down to 30 minutes. How do people do it? Like unless I'm eating a salad, which personally I am not fond of. It's hard for me to do it in that amount of time. And again, after coming home from work, you are tired. You do not want to be spending a whole lot of time in the kitchen. Now this goes both ways because again, it's been so ingrained in me to have a perfectly balanced, healthy, almost like a bit of a fancy meal every time. I grew up with a stay-at-home mom. She took care of us like that. That was almost the right way to eat. And anytime I had anything less than that, I felt terribly guilty that I wasn't making myself this perfectly wonderful meal. And I think I have to come to terms with, number one, you do your best. But number two then, the backup plan is that it is okay to have an off day or an easy day every once in a while, and it is not the end of the world. Now, I find the challenge with meal planning though, many that I have watched, and please leave me links and ideas and people who do this if you find a good resource. Many of the ones I've watched for meal planning focus on very American, Canadian, like Western foods that don't always appeal to me. Yes, I can chop a bunch of carrots and stick them in a jar and just chew them throughout the week, but that doesn't excite me. I still have very much of an Asian palate. I prefer Asian food, although a couple of times a week I will eat things like pasta or other type of grains, and sometimes just some bread with mixing with other stuff. But I do need my core meals to be Asian based, and I find Asian meal prep kind of hard. It's hard to prep those things because they don't keep well in the fridge. But again, correct me if I'm wrong down below in the comments. Okay, let's talk about intention number 3, which had really just come about in the last month or two. I had just finished reading the audiobook. Hang on, can you read an audiobook or can you just listen? I think listening. I had finished listening to the audiobook. It is also a real book if you choose to read it that way, by Newport, called So Good They Can't Ignore You. I will link it down below in the info bar. Don't forget to check that out for all the things I happen to mention in this video. But in there, I was so impressed by the core idea, which says if you want to be passionate about something and if you want to be good at something, you have to do intentional practice. Now, doesn't this sound like a no-brainer when people say practice makes perfect? Yes, but he really focused on the idea of intentional practice, not just doing the easy things, the things that you're comfortable with over and over again because you remain stagnant, but to do the things that are just a little bit harder and a little bit out of reach every single time, but to continuously practice those things until then you master them. And he gives some great examples there. I find because of my perfectionism, I tend to, like I said before, go all or nothing. Either I don't do it, or if I do it, it needs to come out perfect, or else I feel really like a bit of a failure, And I don't know if this is firstborn child syndrome, if this had been for a long time I was an only child or first child of immigrant families. I don't know. Whatever it is, whatever happened through the nature or the nurture, that really struck a chord with me. And I would like to go back to spending more time and possibly building this into my routine for intentional practice. Practice that doesn't always need to result in a finished product, but practice for the sake of practicing with intent, picking the things that will help my skills grow, and essentially doing them over and over and over again until they become as natural and easy as the things that I can already do. And I think this leads me into kind of a 3.1, a little sub note here is I want to explore more varieties of making. You'll know that I love taking photos, I do the blog thing, I sew. That is kind of my main hands-on crafty thing, but I like to explore and maybe even go back to certain types of making I've been doing more before. This can mean focusing more on my video making skills, making videos that are a bit more, I don't want to say artsy, I don't love that word, but with thought behind it, and maybe takes a bit more time to put together and not be quite so on a schedule. 2020, I had to really push myself to get videos up just to not lose the flow of things. Again, most of us were on survival mode, but I didn't want to lose the experience and the practice of making videos. And between the move and the pandemic and all of this, I just put up whatever I could put up, and that was good enough for me. But I think I'm feeling a bit more inspired to go back to making those more thoughtful content for myself and also for you guys as well. This also includes things like art making. I maybe want to explore embroidery and go back to doing some fine arts, which I haven't done in a very, very long time. But again, all with the idea of intentional practice. Side note, great book. If you haven't listened or read it, go check it out. This is actually really, really good. All right, 4. Life intention number 4, short and sweet. I would like to up my gardening game. This balcony, although smaller than my last, is full of sun, and full of sun for longer periods of time. It does get a little bit overly hot during like the heat of summer, if you will, the West Coast heat of summer. So I need to actually kind of make some shade and cover and water plants often and all that. But I really want to get better at my gardening. I know it's a complete niche of urban gardening, balcony gardening. Again, if you have resources, leave them down below for me. I love to check them out. I don't want anything too intensive because beyond my summer break, I don't have a lot of time in the day to take care of the plants, but I still want to make use of the time I do have in the best growing season to try and up my gardening game, be it something for inside the apartment, but also to grow some stuff out there as well. I've been looking at a lot of things. I've been looking at some kind of vertical gardening solution where things grow like this way or stacked. I realize my current setup is not maximizing space, so I might need to tweak that a little bit. But I'm really feeling inspired in the gardening realm, and I'm like pumped to get going. Last thing, 5th life intention is something I think many of you might want to take on as well for 2021, and it's about practicing stillness and making time for the quiet. Interestingly, I am completely fine being alone, but I'm always so wound up in the multitasking and the productivity that I hardly ever make time for quiet. Actually, the most quiet times are probably when I'm filming videos because there's nothing else happening except for me and the camera and you guys, or when I'm sleeping. Otherwise, I'm always trying to do something else at the same time. If I'm cooking, I'm listening to a podcast or an audiobook. If I'm sewing, I have like the murder mysteries on. Like there's always more than one tab open in my life at one time. And I think I need to stop doing that because it's so tiring, and I never actually do the things I am simultaneously doing as well as if I'm just doing that single thing. And of course, it sounds so obvious, doesn't it? But I think we're so trained to multitask. And again, this leads into work as well. That's what I do at work all the time. There's always like 5 things running simultaneously that I need to know about or I need to manage, on the fly and this and that. I am having a hard time being okay with the quiet. It almost feels uncomfortable, and I think when it's uncomfortable, that's something I need to get back into, just letting the quiet be, having maybe 15 minutes of just quiet. Some people like to meditate during that time. Not a big meditator yet, but finding time and spaces where I can just let the natural noise of the apartment, quiet or ambient noise, take its place and be okay with that, and to do a singular thing. I think scrapbooking is probably the way to go. I've been doing that on and off over the past year. I picked it up again during the break season, and I'm looking forward to focusing some of my quiet time on scrapbooking. Now, these are my personal intentions for 2021. I wonder if any of you share similar intentions, if you feel comfortable sharing your goals and thoughts and ideas for this upcoming year. I love to hear it down below in the comments. I read all your messages at some point, but since we are on break, I might get to them a little bit faster. As always, thank you for sticking around for another year. I've lost count of how long I've been on YouTube now. It's kind of crazy. And, things have changed over the years, and I'm finding my new niche, but I'm having a good time doing it, and I can't wait to see what 2021 brings over here on the platform, in my personal life, and just for everyone to be a bit more whole again. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.